Hello, guys. Welcome to another session. So we are going to talk about a very serious and urgent situation which is unfolding in Middle East in this session. See, U.S. President Donald Trump has issued a direct threat to Iran and warned that if Iran does not agree to a new nuclear deal, then the United States might start bombing Iran's nuclear facilities. So this is not just about one country threatening another. It has the potential to lead to a major war in the region. And the US is even making military preparations already regarding this matter. So, what exactly is happening here and why Trump is threatening Iran at this point of time, and what is Iran's response, and how could the situation affect India and the world is what we are going to explain. So, what I'll do is in this lecture, we'll talk about the background of the conflict, right? And then we'll also look at Trump's recent ultimatum and then the status of Iran's nuclear program, and then US and Iran military moves will discuss, and the larger global consequences also. So let's dive into this, very important topic. So let's see what did President Trump say. So recently, in an interview, President Trump have given a strong message to Iran. He said, "Make a deal, or we will start bombing." So he was very direct, and there is no soft language, just a clear military threat here. You see, make a deal, or we will start bombing. So he did not explain the type of bombing, but it was obvious that he meant massive and highly destructive military strikes on Iran. So, in addition, if you see, Trump said that the US could also impose secondary sanctions on Iran. What does that mean? That's a bigger question now. Just like they did with Venezuela. If any country like India buys oil from Iran, then that country can also face penalties from US. So that's what I mean by the secondary punishment. Okay. So, like, if any other country like India is dependent on Iran for oil, right? So, if India buys from Iran, then US may have to impose penalties on sanction on India also. So, imagine that kind of situation definitely affect their economic interest. So, this would definitely lead to even more isolation than you can imagine for Iran at this point of time on the global stage. So that significantly affect their economic interest. So what's the root cause of this conflict? That's what we need to understand. At the center of this issue is Iran's nuclear program. So Iran has been working for many years to develop its nuclear capabilities, and the US, along with the allies like Israel and Saudi Arabia, fears that Iran is getting close to developing a nuclear bomb, and they believe that if Iran becomes a nuclear armed country, it would create a huge threat to the entire region. And to stop this, back in 2015, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, was signed under the President Barack Obama at that point of time. And according to that deal, Iran would limit its nuclear program. In return, the world would lift economic sanctions on Iran. But in 2008, what happened is President Trump came to power and withdrew US from this agreement. So he believed that the deal was unfair and only favored Iran, because they are saying that they will limit the nuclear program, and economic sanctions would be taken out. After that, Trump again reimposed heavy sanctions on Iran. So you can see Trump as a big enemy to Iran, right? Since then, the tension between US and Iran have only increased, and Iran started accelerating its nuclear development again. So that promises and agreements and everything is gone. So Iran started escalating their nuclear development, and US started imposing more and more sanctions on them. So why is Trump giving this ultimatum at this point of time now? Trump has now given Iran 2 month deadline. Either stop your nuclear program and agree to a new deal, or face military action, just like bombing, as I told in the beginning. But what kind of deal does Trump want? That's what a bigger question, right? He want a much stricter deal where Iran would completely ban from developing any nuclear program, even for peaceful or even for civilian use. Right? Normally, for peaceful purpose, civilian purpose, because nuclear program is important for electricity generation also, for all these is allowed, but that should also not be allowed, and it should be more stricter for Iran. That's the condition. So what is the response of Iran, of course, what they will do, they rejected this demand, and they said this approach is not at all acceptable, and no country with sovereignty will accept such kind of demands also. So what Iran argues, the US is not trustworthy, and in 2015 the US signed a deal, and in 2018 they backed out, unilaterally. So how can they trust US again? So that's their side. And Iran also have made it very clear that they will not hold direct talk with US, but they are open to indirect negotiation through countries like Oman. So they insist that their nuclear program is only for civilian purpose like energy, research, and other things. So that's their point, and they are not, directly want to discuss with US. They want to have the indirect negotiation, and they made it very clear that you broke the deal unilaterally, so we can't trust you. Okay, so this is their point. And I told you in the beginning itself, US have actually began the military preparation also. So diplomacy as of now, it seems very difficult. The US is already preparing for a possible war or a military action, and America have deployed that B-2 stealth bombers to its military base in Digo, Garcia, okay, which is located in the Indian Ocean. And these bombers are basically capable of carrying long-range, heavy bombing missions. And this deployment is seen as a warning signal to Iran that the US is serious on this aspect at this point of time, when Trump was saying either make a deal or face bombing, means they are very much well prepared. So even though some may think that it is symbolic and just for threatening, but others actually believe that Trump, is a person who's completely unpredictable, and anything can happen at any point of time. So again, if you look at Iran's military, that's presently showing weakness, though they are claiming that they have too much and other things, but it shows weakness in response. You see, Iran recently showed off its underground missile city. So this was done to showcase their military power to the world. The video in fact showed rows of missiles and rockets stored inside a tunnel. But the problem is, experts there noticed that these missiles are kept in open tunnels without blast doors or any kind of fortified barriers. So if the US bombs that funnel, that tunnels where the missiles and everything has been stored, all missiles could be instantly destroyed. Right, everything could be instantly destroyed, in a single shot itself. So instead of showing strength, this may have, in fact, revealed one of the major weakness in Iran's defense system. So a bombing can itself completely wipe out their entire, the strength that they are talking about. So what's Iran's counter threat? Of course, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei have given a strong response, and he said that if the US attack any Iranian nuclear facility, Iran will definitely retaliate so badly that America will remember it forever. So such kind of threat was given back. In fact, it's a counter threat to the US. And in short, if you see, both countries are exchanging direct open threats, and the possibility of a full-blown war is growing at this point of time in Middle East. Now, what's the impact on the world and India of this development? See, this conflict is not just between US and Iran. It can definitely affect the entire world. Of course, we are depending on Iran too much on oil, and we have the Chabar port and investments and other things. So, it's definitely going to affect the entire world, and of course, us also. So oil prices, right? Iran is major oil producer, and any military conflict that can disrupt oil supply will affect the entire economy. So that will lead to increased oil prices globally. So even such kind of news itself can spike the oil demand. So which is again a very bad news for India, as we import a lot of oil, and Iran is one of the major source from whom we import oil. Okay, so apart from that, there are regional alliances. Like Iran has many supporters in the Middle East, and including Hezbollah in Lebanon and other groups in Syria and Iraq. So on the other side, if you see, the US have strong allies like Israel and Saudi Arabia. So if a war starts, these countries and groups may also get involved, and that lead to a major regional war. So if by any chance, if Iran's military or oil setup or anything get attacked, first Iran, what they'll do is they'll attack the oil reserves of Saudi Arabia. So that will create a bigger crisis for oil in this area. So what's the broader geopolitical background here? If we want to understand this tension or this issue better, we need to look at history. That in 2003, after US invaded Iraq, Iran started expanding its influence across the Middle East. So US invaded Iraq, so Iraq became powerless, and Iran started expanding its influence across the Middle East, and Iran began to support groups and governments in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. So this actually increased the Iran's power, and which was not liked by Saudi Arabia on one side, right, and the other side Israel also. So as a result, what happened, the region again became divided into two major groups, one led by US and its allies like Saudi and Israel, and the other was just supported by Iran and its allies like Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and all those countries. So this rivalry, and it's still continuing, and is one of the reasons why such kind of tensions keep rising again and again in the region. So to conclude, what I want to tell you is the situation between President Trump and Iran is now a very dangerous stage. It's an open threat which has been given by Trump, and there is a counter threat also that US will never forget the kind of retaliation that they're going to face. So Trump have clearly said, make a deal or face bombing. And Iran have said, we don't trust US and we don't, bow down to threats also. Both countries are now ready, for a war, and they're not willing or not ready to compromise, and both are making military moves, military threats and counter threats and other things, and preparation also. So both are showing the strength as well, right? So this is in fact creating tension across the Middle East, and the whole world is watching very closely. If this escalate into a full-blown war, it will affect the oil prices, it will affect the regional peace, and even the countries like India. So let's hope wise diplomacy wins over the war. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Stay aware, stay informed. In case if you're looking for any mentorship program or anything, get in touch with us. Check out the details in the description. So see you guys. Thank you so much.